All right, so we're going to talk about convection, okay? Talk about convection. Convection, we know from convection, conduction, and radiation that we're talking about the transfer of heat energy. We know that conduction is things touching, right? Contact. We know that convection is hot air rising and cold air falling. We've talked about that. Heat rises. We know that radiation is waves, right? Thank you, Neil. So it is waves. So right here, I've got a situation where I've got a flame. And I can feel the heat, really. When I get close to it, I can feel the heat. That's radiation. I'm not touching it, but I'm real close, okay? That is radiation, like around a campfire. But convection is me being able to feel it up here, because I can't feel it. If I put my fingers on either side of the flame, I can't feel the flame right there. There's not enough heat. There's not enough of a flame. But if I put my hand way up here, I can still feel the heat, because that heat is rising up. Okay, it is less dense, so it is rising up to touch my hand. So in that same respect, I got a little dooflodgy that I made here that I can put over top of this, and hopefully this little piece of paper that I made will stay on top of this thing. I had it working yesterday, and I have struggled with it this morning. But either way, you're going to get to see kind of what I'm talking about convection. So after this is over, you are going to write for me everything that I'm doing. You're going to explain to me what I'm doing during this little experiment. You're going to write down what pieces I used. You're going to write down what I did. You're going to write down what was happening, why it worked the way it did, whether it worked or not, and maybe why it didn't. Because I've struggled a little bit today with this. But either way, there's something to be learned from it. So if I put this box contraption here that I've made over top of this, and I set this little piece of paper here on top of it that I've made. Sometimes it stays and sometimes it doesn't. Something is going to happen here in a second, hopefully, as the inside of that box heats up. It takes a second for the heat to come out the top. Maybe it takes a second. Come on, you can do it. All right, let me adjust my flaps here. Maybe let a little more air in the bottom. Maybe that'll help. Ultimately, what I'm trying to do is use convection to spin that little piece of paper. Come on, baby, do it. Let's go. Stay on there. Okay, so it came off. My piece of paper, I struggled to get the piece of paper to stay on there because of the way it's made. This was just kind of a rudimentary example, but you kind of see what's happening. I'm not using any type of spring. I'm not using any type of motor, and obviously I'm using no balance whatsoever because it keeps falling off. But you can kind of tell what's happening enough to where you could explain it. That back centered. Well, I thought about trying to make these, but it was just going to be a much larger effort to try to make it than what you were actually going to learn out of it. So hopefully you can just observe this one and get out of it what you need. And ultimately, what is happening? Think in your mind. Don't say it out loud, but think about what is happening in this scenario. I've got air coming in the bottom, right? I've got cool air coming in here. It's being heated by the flame. And for whatever reason, I can't make it work today. I had this thing running for like 15 minutes yesterday, and now all of a sudden it won't work. The paper won't stay on. Well, I thought about that.
Can we all try that?
No. There are lots, and that's actually something that you could do at the end of what we're talking about, is maybe make a suggestion for a way that this would work a little better. I wonder if it's because so much. So what you're going to find here in just a second when we get started in Canvas, okay, is a place where you can tell me what I'm doing. You're going to explain to me what is happening in this experiment. And I also want you to explain what I'm trying to do. It's obviously not working real well now. It was working a little better a minute ago, but I had it working yesterday. what's actually happening? If that thing stayed, right, it would spin, right? Okay, I don't want you to say it out loud. It would spin, okay? It would spin, and there's some reason that that's happening. So I'm going to leave this stuff up here for you to look at, okay? I'm going to leave this stuff up here for you to look at, the parts and the pieces, if you want to look at it. What I want you to do in Canvas, if you go to Canvas and you start at the top and you work your way down, it's going to give you a list of instructions, some things to try, okay? So I want you to go through that. There's a little quiz there that says, this is what I observed in this experiment or whatever. You're just going to answer the questions that I've got there. You're going to tell me what you just saw. You're going to tell me what was happening here. You're going to tell me what forces were at work, okay?